In 1966, America was buzzing with change. Music, politics, civil rights, everything was shifting. But in one quiet corner of California, another revolution was about to begin. Not with words, not with protest, but with movement, with silence, and with one man's unshakable belief in himself. His name was Bruce Lee. At that moment, the world saw him only as a struggling actor with a strange accent and fast hands. But inside, he knew something no one else did, that his art, his philosophy, his way of life would one day change how humanity viewed combat, discipline, and even identity itself. In the mid-1960s, America's martial arts scene was dominated by imported traditions: Japanese karate, Korean taekwondo, Chinese kung fu. Schools taught rigid kata, strict hierarchies, and ancient rules that had barely changed in centuries. But then came Bruce, a Chinese immigrant who spoke fast, moved faster, and questioned everything. To the old masters, that made him dangerous, even disrespectful. To Bruce, it made him alive. That idea, the freedom to think, to move, to be, was radical, and it frightened the gatekeepers. So when Bruce was invited to a local martial arts display in 1966, it wasn't an act of respect. It was a publicity stunt. He was the movie guy, the flashy outsider who could attract a curious crowd. To most of the masters present, he wasn't one of them. He was an entertainer. They didn't invite him to learn from him. They invited him to prove him wrong. Bruce arrived early, not to prepare for a show, but to center himself. He knew what people thought of him. He could hear the whispers, the snickers, the quiet doubts. He had been doubted before. As a mixed-race kid in Hong Kong, he was too foreign for some, too Chinese for others. But every insult, every smirk, every locked door, it only sharpened his purpose. And that day in California, that purpose was about to meet its moment. He stepped onto the mat without a robe, without ceremony. No bowing to impress, no rehearsed routines, just presence. That quiet, unbreakable confidence that made even the skeptics pause. They expected noise, flash, a showman. Instead, Bruce gave them silence and stillness that spoke louder than words. It wasn't a fight. It wasn't violence. It was revelation. In a single instant, he shattered not bones, but belief. Belief in what power looked like, how it should behave, and who was allowed to wield it. Those who came to laugh now leaned forward. Those who doubted now wondered. And somewhere between disbelief and awe, respect began to take root. When the demonstration ended, Bruce didn't bask in applause. He simply bowed, smiled, and left the stage. But the echo of what he'd done stayed behind. That day, he hadn't defeated an opponent. He had defeated doubt. And for the martial arts world, it was the beginning of a quiet transformation. Old schools began to question old methods. Young fighters started blending disciplines. And though they didn't yet have a name for it, Bruce had just planted the seed of what he would later call Jeet Kune Do, the way of the intercepting fist. But more importantly, he had proved something deeper, that greatness doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers and still shakes the world. Not everyone was ready to accept what they saw. Some dismissed it as trickery, a stunt, or Hollywood illusion. To them, martial arts was sacred, bound by lineage and ritual. Bruce, however, saw it differently. It wasn't arrogance. It was philosophy. He wasn't trying to destroy tradition. He was trying to free it. To remind everyone that martial arts were never about memorizing, they were about realizing. Bruce Lee's message arrived at the perfect time. The world was already questioning everything: politics, race, power, and identity. And here came a young Chinese man in a world dominated by Western heroes, standing tall and saying, "Be yourself. Express yourself." That inclusivity, that belief that anyone could learn, anyone could grow, made Bruce not just a martial artist, but a bridge between worlds. Decades later, that one small exhibition is remembered by few. No official footage survives. No trophy marks it. But its legacy lives in every fighter who dares to mix styles, in every student who questions their limits, and in every person who believes they can define themselves on their own terms. He once said, "Empty your mind, be formless, shapeless, like water." And on that day in 1966, he was water. He flowed around tradition, through prejudice, and straight into the future. It's easy to measure success by applause, trophies, or fame. But sometimes, history changes in a quiet room, when one man stands alone, misunderstood, and decides not to prove others wrong, but to prove himself right. Bruce Lee didn't win that day because he was stronger. He won because he was free. And freedom, true freedom, is contagious. It ripples through time, through culture, and through every soul who has ever been told they weren't enough. And he did, not through force, but through grace. Not through noise, but through silence that still echoes today.